Hi, Amy Shaw here. It's September 20th, 2016, and today I just want to ramble on a little bit about the Mandela Effect, and specifically the idea that we are multidimensional and multiverse beings, that we exist in multiple parallel realities, and that we actually have the ability to transcend this dimension and routinely do that. When I first started talking about the Mandela Effect, when I first came across on YouTube, a lot of the things that were coming up on my own recommended watch list were very fear-based things people were talking about how this, Mandela Effect, it's this delusion, it's created by CERN or the government or these quantum computers, and that somehow these people or these groups had this malevolent sort of intent, and this Mandela Effect was sort of this proof of it. Whether the people experiencing it directly were being attacked in some way, or the people not experiencing it in some way were being attacked. So it was just repeatedly over and over these videos, and I don't tend to really resonate in that sort of fear-based creation of reality. So I made my own video, and in that very first video that I made talking about the Mandela Effect, since then, I've seen a growing trend now on my recommended videos list over there on the side of more and more people talking about the Mandela Effect, and also within the context of us being able to exist in a multiverse, that we are multiverse beings, that parallel realities exist, and people are grappling with the idea. They're becoming more and more open to the idea and exploring it and having fun with that. So I'm excited about that. And I'm here today to just kind of encourage you in that and share with you some more of what my experiences have been and what I know. And a couple days ago, I came across a video by the user Grace Butler. And she was talking about having a similar experience of coming across videos like, I think she said, like the, reptilian race taking over the planet or something like that. And she was saying, that she doesn't like to watch those videos either. And she went on to talk about how, she wonders if they, whoever they are, aren't somehow using that to cause us to actually manifest stuff. Which is a really interesting thought, because it's a thought that I've had for quite a long time now. When I was a kid growing up, I always had this sense of, this apocalyptic event was going to happen at some point in the future. We're fed this through the Hollywood movies and all the other different things, just the Bible lessons and all the different things, So I've always known that there was this collective conscience about this, that something like that was going to happen. Well, as time's gone on and the older I've got, the more apparent it is to me that that belief has grown even stronger. And, it's not even just a fringe thing, because we have shows like Doomsday Preppers, and, I remember 4 or 5 years ago hearing Glenn Beck on Fox News talk about food storage and how important that was. And so there's a lot of people out there that really do believe, we're coming upon a time. I don't think people exactly know. They don't know if it's going to be economic collapse. They don't know if it's going to be World War III. They don't know if it's going to be natural disasters, disease, or all the above. But there's a lot of people that have this growing sort of anxiety or belief, this tense belief that something catastrophic, apocalyptic is right on the verge of happening. And I've always said, since the beginning of these people talking about this and these shows coming on, that it's almost as if they're going to create it to happen. Because when you have so many people collectively thinking on it, planning on it, meditating on it, talking about it, it's almost as if they're going to manifest it to happen. I mean, how can it not, right? So it's an inevitable thing. And, I think we can kind of have clues and ideas about what's coming, and it probably is wise to prepare. But it's interesting to consider, to what degree people are actually creating and causing it. one of the things Grace started talking about as she was suggesting that she too wonders how they, whoever they are sort of controlling and manipulating us through implanting these ideas and fears. She started talking about Jane Roberts' work with channeling Seth. And I want to tell a story that I have about Seth, actually. In 1986, I lived in the high desert. I grew up there from the time I was 12 until my mid-20s. I had lived there prior as a very young child. My mom and I moved there to escape a really bad domestic violence situation. And then we came back later on under different circumstances. So from the time I was 12 till my mid-20s, I grew up in the Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley area, which is like the high desert mountains in California. And it's a very rural, funky, hippie kind of place. And so there wasn't a lot of access. There was no bookstore. There was no mall. There was nothing like that back in those days. And in 1986, there was no internet. I mean, we didn't even have cordless phones, right? I mean, it was just a whole different time. One of the things that I would do as a teenager would be drive the 45 minutes to an hour down to the lower desert, Palm Springs area, and go to the mall. It was the nearest mall. Inside the mall, there was a very small Barnes & Noble. It wasn't like the full-size store, but it had enough books in it to draw your interest. And I, as you can see, am a big-time book addict. Across from me is a whole nother very, very large, much larger even than these, bookshelf full of books. And I've already given about 4 or 5, maybe even 6 really large boxes of books that I weeded through them and took them down to the half-price bookstore. So, yeah, I'm a book lover. I've always been a collector of books. So, in 1986, I was, 13, 14 years old. I lived with my very best girlfriend at the time. Long story, but yeah, we lived together. And she and I, were kind of messing around, dabbling with stuff, just doing stuff, that teenagers can do sometimes. And we came across this entity that called himself Seth. It became apparent really quick that I was way over my head with this entity, and the knowledge, the information that was coming through was way, way above my pay grade. And it scared the crap out of both of us because we had no idea what this entity really was, what the intention was. I don't know. We were scared of it, and we sort of just, okay, we're done. We're not gonna, we're not going there. And it called itself Seth. Well, I had no clue. So she and I, my girlfriend Corey, we went down to the mall one day, and I went in Barnes & Noble, and she was messing around in her little section, and I was over in my favorite section, which was the religious and occult section, and just browsing through the books and looking, and all of a sudden, I come across this book, Seth Speaks, and I about fell over. Seth Speaks. Oh my God. So I called Corey over, in our little teenage drama, look, and she just about fell over, and we were both just completely dumbfounded. So I sat down right then and there on the floor with this book, Jane Roberts' book, Seth Speaks, and I spent 30 to 45 minutes. I didn't have the money to buy the book. So I read through it, and I read as much as I could to sort of gather what the book was about, who this Seth person was, and I was just amazed. I don't know for sure if the entity that I had experienced that called himself Seth was the same entity or not, but I can say that it resonated. The stuff that I was reading was way above my head. I just, at that time in 1986, being the age that I was reading it, and I was like, whoa, it was not different than anything I had ever read or encountered. And it was quite honestly a little hard for me to grasp. I could feel my mind just expanding as I was thumbing through and trying to speed read through it. But by the same token, it was way more than I was able to even grasp. So that was my one and only exposure to Seth, and I don't know again if it was the same entity that Corey and I encountered, but there was a resonance there. Some of the information that was coming through to us from this entity calling itself Seth, it was of that caliber, that sort of higher stuff that was overwhelming to me at the time. So that's my only exposure to Seth, to Jane Roberts, to the Seth material. Now, over the years, I've had different people ask me, oh, have you read Jane Roberts? Are you familiar with the Seth material? And, I've kind of gotten a little here and there. But for the most part, I don't have any exposure to it. Until the other day when I came across Grace's video, and she's actually on her channel, she reads out of Jane Roberts' books. She reads them out loud. And one of the books that she was reading from is The Nature of Personal Reality from Jane Roberts. And I was just amazed. As she was reading through it, I felt myself it was resonating with me. And I was just going, yes, 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 awesome. Another interesting connection, last week was the last course in a 6-month course that I've been taking with Robert Moss on quantum dreaming. It's the 3rd class that I've taken with Robert Moss. He's an amazing teacher, and I've learned so much. I mean, so much. But this particular class, this 6-month quantum dreaming class, has been absolutely profound. It has completely shifted my perspective and understanding of reality, of consciousness, as who we are as human beings, what we're capable of. In fact, one of the things that Grace read out of the Jane Roberts book, Seth even stated that we are limitless beings. So it's interesting, I'm coming off of this class, and at the very beginning of the class, one of the things Robert mentioned was Jane Roberts and the Seth material. And he even suggested that it might be good reading material to support the class. I didn't rush out and buy the book because I'm already reading a stack of books. I'm reading She Who Dreams right now, which is an amazing book about a woman who healed herself of cancer through dreams. And then I'm still reading through another channeled work, Paul Selig's Book of Mastery. I've read all of Paul Selig's work, so I'm familiar with that type of channel material. And after listening, I spent yesterday morning listening to several of Grace's reading sessions. I'm going to put links in this video for you guys if you're interested in hearing her read the Seth material. I spent yesterday morning listening to several of her reading sessions of the Jane Roberts stuff, and it resonated so much. So being familiar with Paul Selig's work and then listening to Grace read Jane Roberts' work, I can say that it's very similar in a lot of ways and also very different in a lot of ways. Some of the things that Paul's work has really helped me to transcend and think over is the idea even of our ego identities and how we identify ourselves as wounded, as healers, and this type of thing, as shamans, as Christians, as brothers, as sisters, as wives, as whatever sort of labels that we put on ourselves. It's really helped me to kind of step back and see the place that has in reality creation. And so that, along with the quantum dreaming class, has really opened me up to the idea that this Mandela Effect really is just evidence that we are multidimensional beings and travelers. We're taught, we have dreams, and we're taught, when we wake up in the morning, oh, that's just a dream, it's not real. And we're taught in this sort of 3D reality, this materialist reality, to separate out real from unreal, real from dream, real from fantasy, real from imagination. And the thing of it is our consciousness doesn't make those distinctions. In our consciousness, when we're dreaming and we're going to different places, we are really going there. When we're interacting with people, we're really interacting with them. And in that sense, another thing that I've really learned through that quantum dreaming class is that time in a linear sense is really only bound to this dimension, to our local 3D reality. In our actual soul state, our eternal state, time doesn't really exist. We're not bound by time. And it certainly isn't this linear chinking along. And so in that perspective, it brings up this whole idea of karma and past lives. And I use that term past life. I used it the other day. As I use it now, it's really just for frame of reference, for common language, so that when I say past life, people understand kind of what I'm referring to. But in actuality, one of the things that Robert taught is that there's no such thing as past life. There's parallel lives, and it's occurring simultaneously all at the same time. It's kind of mind-boggling to consider that, but it's also exciting too, because one of the potentials for that perspective and doing that type of work, that level of dream work, is to actually go in and do some profound healing. Some of the things that we experience, in this life, we think that are exclusive to this life, or we might think, oh, it's karma, bad karma from a past life. In reality, we could say that it's a parallel life that's co-occurring, and we can go into and travel into those spaces, into that parallel reality, and integrate some of that, heal some of that, and have really profound effect on our lives today as we experience and get to know ourselves in this sort of local reality of our consciousness. So the potential is there. And like I said, I'm reading this book from Wanda Birch, She Who Dreams, and how she used dreams to heal herself of cancer. So I feel like this Mandela effect is not necessarily this really bad thing where we have to be fearful of it, or we have to look at it like it's negative and it's to harm us, to create delusion or division. But the potential is there to open us up to the possibility of interdimensional reality. And the opportunity in that is very, very, very profound, and can help us to start exploring healing and integration, and how we work with these things, and how we do, in fact, do create our reality. That gets me into another thing, though. I also, have a shamanic teacher that I absolutely adore. Charles Knatzter is his name. Such a loving, healing, humble man, and I just adore him. And one of the things that he's always saying, if we, bring up to him, well, what about this? What about this idea? What about that? And he'll always respond by saying, well, that's one possibility, but keep in mind there's 10 other ones, or, yep, that could be, but it could not be too. And so his approach is always, in a sense, to question everything and to carefully discern between what is belief system versus what is like absolute truth, what our absolute experience is. And so I also have to say, coming off of this 6-month dream course, while it's been exciting and I've learned so much and it's expanded my mind, and it really fits into this experience of the Mandela Effect and what a lot of people are talking about now, it also is a very distinct belief system. And not everybody's going to have that belief system. And it's why there's all these videos out there that are saying, that, oh, it's CERN, oh, it's the enemy, it's the devil, it's, because this is the belief system for some people. And some people haven't experienced the Mandela Effect, or they have, but they're not convinced, or whatever. For those people, that also is a legitimate experience of their reality and the reality that they're creating for themselves. And that's okay too. I'm not here to try to convince you. I'm not here to tell you that your reality is wrong. I'm here to tell you that there are multiple realities that not only occur interdimensionally that we're just opening our mind to, but the possibility that there are multiple realities occurring right now in this 3D materialist reality that we're experiencing. How do you know that when I look at, a book that has a red cover and letters on it that says statistics, the first course. How do you know? I'm looking at it over there. All my textbooks are over there on that bookshelf. But how do you know that I'm looking at that and seeing that in exactly the same way that you're seeing it? You don't know. There's no way that we can know. So virtually two people standing next to each other looking at the exact same object are not having the same reality or experience of that object. So that goes back into this idea of parallel realities. The two people can be existing side by side in the material realm, and what they're seeing is actually two different things. It's two different experiences. So in essence, these are two parallel realities. And a lot of our realities collectively sort of weave in and out. But I think that it's possible that what we're seeing with this Mandela effect is a much more pronounced difference of experience, which is evidence of parallel realities, of the multiverse that we live in, that we are travelers of a multiverse universe. And so it's interesting to think of it like that and to accept that as your own reality. And some people won't. Again, some people won't accept that. They may never in this lifetime. We're taught to believe that there's such a thing as this objective observer. And the entire scientific field is based on this assumption of an objective observer. And the reality is, truly, there is no such thing as an objective observer. It doesn't exist. It's impossible. Because the second we drag it back into our conscious experience and make sense of it in our own mind, we are creating reality. Or actually what Seth says is that we create, the reality begins from within us and then out pictures. It's not even out pictured and then comes back in. It's the other way around. We actually are creating it beforehand within us and then out picturing it. So, it's interesting to ponder these things. Again, I'm not saying this absolute truth. It's a belief system. I personally am excited about it. I think there's a lot of potential, and it's fun and creative and expansive. And I can't see why anybody would be afraid of it. But I understand that not everybody's going to want to accept that as part of the reality or work with it. I'm just glad there's more and more people talking about the Mandela Effect, and that more and more of you are opening up to the possibility of being an interdimensional traveler. I'm glad to have you guys all in my family. It's exciting. And one of the things that I learned in this last class that I took with Robert Moss is there were several of us that got together and set intention to meet at certain places and have certain experiences in our dream time. And we were able to achieve various levels of success in making that happen. And a lot of synchronicity and stuff happening around that. So that just proved and affirmed to me that we have much more ability than we realize that we have, and that we truly are when we go into dream time. It's not just something randomly happening to us out of our subconscious that's trying to, work through our psyche or, our repressed material. It's much more than that. If you can set intention and actually meet somebody in a specified place in dream time and see the actual benefit and effect of that, then we're dealing with something that's, to me, in my direct experience, this is a real thing. This is a real thing. We are interdimensional travelers. Nobody can really convince me otherwise at this point. But I understand. I understand that it's not everybody's reality. I understand, people create their own reality and they need to maintain their realities for various purposes. And I respect that. I'm not here to convince you of any of this. I'm here to just say that I'm really excited to see more things coming up on my recommended YouTube watches of people talking about this, being interdimensional travelers, and how the Mandela Effect is helping them to sort of step back and question and grapple and work with these issues and open up their awareness to the possibility. It's exciting times that we're living in. I'm super excited. I'm really glad to have all these people, now that are sort of, in my family. I consider you in my family and my tribe, that we can talk about these things and play and go and visit these places. And yeah, I'm just really excited. So I just want to encourage you guys, those of you that are Mandela Effectors and you're grappling with these issues, keep working with them. Don't give up. Keep working with them. You can learn how to work with this and do some amazing things with it. And for those of you that don't believe, it's okay. It's all right. I accept your reality is where you're at. It's where you need to be. I don't judge it. We all have a path. And I'm okay, you're okay, I'm okay, we're all okay. Either way, we're all human beings on this planet doing it together. And if we just love and support one another and stop trying to force our reality on each other, the world's going to be a much better place. I hope that that's where we can all get to, laying down the belief systems, that we're all clinging to so tightly, and become willing to explore other people's realities and alternatives, and to just keep them open mind. It's not going to hurt you. All right, I love you guys, and I'll see you again soon.